on my podcast, I've been very lucky to have some pretty incredible people on there and also cover some pretty incredible subjects. And I did a series of podcasts about, there's a guy named Chesty Puller, who is kind of the biggest hero in the Marine Corps, 5 Navy Crosses, just the most iconic of all Marines.
Sure.
And his son was in the Marine Corps too. And his son wasn't quite the same kind of hardy stock that Chesty Puller was. Lewis Puller was more of a cerebral guy. He had glasses. He just wasn't this sort of Marine, which is what his father was. But, he joined the Marine Corps. And then he went to Vietnam, 1968, and he ended up getting severely wounded. It's a totally tragic story. And he ended up killing himself after he wrote an incredible book, which is called Fortunate Son. And it seemed like everything was going in the right direction. The book came out, Pulitzer Prize winner. Well, I had another guy on my podcast who was also wounded in Vietnam. He lost both of his legs and one of his arms. His name is Jim Searlesley, just an incredible guy. And to hear him tell the story, you're waiting for sort of the tragic tone in his voice to come out, and it doesn't come out. And then he gets home from Vietnam, and now you're thinking, here's going to come the tragic tone in his voice, and it doesn't come. And instead he's saying, so I had to spend 9 months in rehab just to learn how to work my wheelchair. And then I got out of there. I went to college. When I went to college, I started a little roofing company. And he's just saying this like it's no big deal. Started a roofing company, started getting into real estate, got married. And so he carried on with his life and just led this incredible life. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because when we got done with the podcast and we were just sitting around and talking, and he asked me, he goes, "Do you know who Lewis Puller is?" And I go, "Yes, sir, I do. I did a podcast on him." And he goes, "I was in rehab with him." And he said, he never fully accepted what happened to him. He said, "I think he was at 99%. He said, "When I got home, I 100% accepted that this is what had happened and I'm going to move forward." So I think that ties into what we're talking about. Things unfold in life. And if you want to sit there and, shake your fists at the sky and, I understand that. And, I've done that. And I know we all do that. But if that's what you continue to do, you're not going to be able to move forward.
One of my favorite Marcus Aurelius quotes, and I think it ties into your message. And it's weird to think he was writing during the Antonine Plague, a plague that lasts for 15 years, and ultimately he ends up succumbing to it at the end of his reign. But he writes, he's like, "It's unfortunate that this happened," and then he says, "No, wait, it's fortunate that it happened to me, because not everyone would have basically what I have." And he talks about sort of that strength is the ability to look at whatever happens and say, sort of, this is exactly what I was looking for. I have one thought on fear. There's a Hebrew saying that I love. It's from the 1800s, but he goes, "The world is a narrow bridge, and the important thing is to not be afraid." The point is, when you're walking on a narrow balance beam or a narrow bridge, the one thing you can't do is be scared, because it'll mess you up and you'll fall. And I think that's sort of the predicament we're in. It's not fair. Nobody chose it. It's not our fault. But you got to cross this bridge now. And this fear, as you said, there has some evolutionary reasons, but courage is going to be important, right? And that's one of those sort of core Stoic virtues, which is like, and there's another quote I love from Faulkner. He says, "It's okay to be scared. You can't help that, but don't be afraid." You have to keep going. That's just the reality. So you might as well.
Yeah. If afraid is being paralyzed, right? So for instance, Dean Martin. Now that name may not mean much to a lot of people, but in his day, Dean Martin was the consummate entertainer, sort of top tier, top 5 most recognizable names in the United States, probably.
Yeah.
And he used to vomit. He would get so nervous, and one could say afraid, that he would vomit before every performance. Mike Tyson, same story. And the trainer who really made Mike Tyson, Customato, you can find video or at least audio of Customato saying this. He would say the hero and the coward feel the same thing. They feel the fear. It's what the hero does that makes him different. And Tyson was also terrified. I mean, terrified may not be the right word, but fearful before he got into the ring. One of the most dominant boxers of all time.
Sure.
And if they can't get a immunity bracelet for fear, it's unreasonable to expect yourself to. Many of these Stoics, per se, if we just put aside the best known names, if we put aside Marcus Aurelius, we put aside Epictetus, we put aside Seneca, and so on, you still have George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. These people are not known as Stoics, and yet they were very much informed and directed by much of Stoic philosophy. And to the extent that George Washington, I guess at Valley Forge, had the troops perform, I'm blanking on the name of the play, but it was a play about, it was Cato, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Cato to boost morale and continue the fight. And I do have Epicurean tendencies. I find the Epicureans to be of great interest, but what allows me to tend the garden, to drink my wine, and derive great pleasure from simple things is the safety net that is Stoicism. For me, I do not think, as someone who, maybe a story for another time, but had some very traumatic experiences in childhood and has always been hyper vigilant. Without Stoicism and tools that are complementary to Stoicism, I don't feel like I have the safety net underneath me with which I can then walk across that narrow bridge. Right?
Yeah.
And that is what allows the Epicureanism. So it really is the precursor and necessary antecedent to those things.
Hey, it's Ryan Holiday. Thank you so much for watching our videos. Every day I send out an email inspired by the best Stoic wisdom, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, all designed to help you live a better life. That's what I'm trying to do. The email takes 5 minutes to read. Over 300,000 people get it. That's the largest community of Stoics ever in the history of the world. I'd love to have you check it out. Totally free. Unsubscribe whenever you want, but I think you'll like it. Sign up at dailystoic.com/email.